The West Coast Trail is a 75-kilometer point-to-point hiking trail along a remote stretch of the southwestern coast of Vancouver Island. Originally created in 1907 to help rescue shipwrecked survivors along the coast, it's become one of British Columbia's most popular long-distance trails, attracting nearly 7,000 visitors each year from all over the world. The trail offers a unique and challenging experience, complete with deep sand, thick mud, torrential rain, creek crossings and cable cars, slippery roots, rocks, and boardwalks, not to mention the countless ladders. The Coast Guard rescues someone from the trail on average every second day. But it's also a place of incredible beauty, offering glimpses of wildlife like wolves, eagles, humpback whales, and sea lions, as you make your way through dense forests, past lakes, caves, and waterfalls, and along rugged beaches and awe-inspiring coastal features at every turn. Growing up in Vancouver, I'd always wanted to hike the trail, so I jumped at the chance to join my friend Carl in the summer of 2017 when he managed to secure permits. We caught the 9 o'clock ferry on Friday evening from Horseshoe Bay to Nanaimo.
We dropped the car here, we huff it into Bamfield at 4 a.m. in the dark. Moore Beach, back onto the trail, Camper Bay.
So it's either we push through hiking along the beach or we hiked here.
We then made the 3-hour drive to the northern trailhead of the West Coast Trail at Pechina Bay, arriving at 3 a.m. and managed to get about 30 minutes of sleep in the car before making the 6-kilometer walk along the road to Bamfield. At 6 a.m., we caught our water taxi from Bamfield to make the trip back to the southern trailhead at Gordon River. The water taxi provided amazing views of the rugged coastline we'd soon be hiking, along with sightings of 2 humpback whales and other wildlife.
The Stellars are more like a grumbling roar, like a growl, and then the California sea lion.
We arrived at Gordon River at 9 a.m., just in time for the 10 o'clock mandatory hiker orientation.
So you really have a perfect week. But before you, there was also a few weeks of dry weather, which dried everything up. Yeah, it's so fantastic.
I'm at 45 pounds. That's all right, that's doable.
We set up camp and made dinner while watching the sunset as we prepared to catch the first ferry across Gordon River the next morning at 8:45 a.m.
Pretty high, eh?
Not bad. That's the longest going off the start.
All right, let's do this.
We began to climb up gradually through rooted and heavily forested terrain as we made our way from sea level up to 230 meters in elevation, which would be the highest point on the trail.
Ah!
It had been completely dry the week before we arrived, which meant the trail was about as dry as it ever gets. And this is a hike typically known for its mud. Heading south to north meant we'd be tackling the most difficult section of the trail first, and the view of the ocean was unfortunately obstructed by the thick forest for most of it.
right, so we are about 7 kilometers in. So far the trail's been pretty good. It's dry for the most part. The weather's good. The rain stopped, the sun came out for a bit, and we're making pretty good time now.
There are 2 routes in several areas of the trail, one a beach route and another higher inland route. Given the timing of the tides, we'd been forced to play it safe and avoid the beach near Thrasher Cove, but we'd really wanted to check out the cave at Owen Point. So we decided to drop our packs near the next beach access outside of the Port San Juan Inlet, so we could quickly backtrack along the beach to Owen Point. This would give us about 10 minutes to explore the cave before we had to rush back along the shelf to avoid the incoming tide. We carried on along the beach for as long as we could until we were forced back up onto the inland trail, reaching our destination at Camper Bay around 6 p.m. after covering 16 kilometers on foot, including our little detour.
All right, it's day 2. We got a little bit of a late start today. The weather's perfect. It's bone dry, nice and warm, but not too humid. It's beautiful out here.
Not long after leaving Camper Bay en route to Wabron Creek, we encountered our first of many sets of ladders for the day. This leg would be totally inland with no beach access, but there were a ton of ladders. Gotten a bit of a late start and spent a lot of time taking photos, so we didn't reach the campsite until 6 p.m. after covering a leisurely 9 kilometers. We'd been warned about the mice that tend to lurk in the driftwood near the main campsite, so we set up in a cave across the creek instead, where we'd also be protected from the rain overnight. The next morning, we took a cable car across the creek to rejoin the inland trail. We'd later find out that there was indeed beach access from the campsite, and we'd unnecessarily taken an inland route with much more climbing and, of course, more ladders. After After popping back out to the beach at Vancouver Point, the rest of the day was scenic and easy walking. We arrived at Chez Monique's legendary burger shack around noon, a popular rest stop around the halfway point that has fed hikers from around the world for 25 years. Sadly, Monique passed away in 2018, followed closely by her husband, marking 2019 as the first year that the restaurant was not open for business. After a delicious burger and a beer, followed by a short nap in the hammocks and some conversation with other hikers, we were back on our way. Our next stop was to visit the lighthouse at Carmenay Point, which was established in 1891. The present tower was built in 1920 and remains in operation today. We set up camp for the night at Cribbs Creek after covering 11 kilometers for the day. The sound of hundreds of sea lions bellowing out could be heard from the rocks off Carmenay Point nearby. Our fourth day would be the longest in distance, but would also prove to be an incredibly scenic day of beach hiking. We made great time along the boardwalks of the Dididat First Nations territory, which were in excellent shape compared to most of the other boardwalks throughout the park, which are in desperate need of repair. We soon arrived at Nitinat Narrows for one of our most anticipated parts of the trip, fresh salmon and cold beer. The crab shack at Nitinat is quite unique, where the salmon is caught, prepared, and grilled right before your eyes.
So guys, cheers.
Cheers.
After catching up with some friends we'd made on the trail, we hopped on the ferry across the Narrows to continue on our way. The stretch of inland trail after Nitinat climbs a cliff high above the tidal shelf below.
Without my love for the ocean, I would be long gone by now. It's some kind of devotion that brings me down.
We took a walk through the hole in the wall at Susiat Point before making the final trek to Susiat Falls, another iconic stop on the trail.
When I walk alone
waterfalls were some of the coldest water we've swam in yet, but there's absolutely no better way to end a 19-kilometer day of hiking.
Rain finally came last night, so the trails are quite a bit muddier today. But I think that they were so dry that most of the rain water just kind of got absorbed by the ground. It's still not nearly as bad as it could be. Is this the biggest ladder?
Could be.
Biggest ladder of the whole trip, I think?
It's a 60 runger.
60 runger.
Wherever you're going, I'm going too. I'll follow you through the black and the blue. Whatever the mountain, we'll climb to the next. Honey, I'm with you through poverty.
So we're just keeping our eye out for a beached whale that's apparently been here for a few weeks. We think it's a humpback. It should be around here somewhere.
After 9 kilometers on day 5, we'd reached our campsite at Darling River. A short hike up the mouth of the river led to a waterfall in a beautiful canyon. Another perfect spot for a bath, aside from the freezing temperature of the water. After setting up camp on the beach, we still had plenty of time to soak up the afternoon sun and relax in our hammocks, as we tried to make the most of our last evening on the trail.
We're hiking out, back to work.
It's always sad to see a trip like this come to an end, and we packed up camp on day 6 with a sense of melancholy, knowing that by the same time tomorrow we'd be back to real life. And it rained on us for the first time since our first day on the trail. final 10 kilometers are relatively flat and fast, and they ticked by quickly. We reached the end of the trail at around 1 o'clock after covering 14 kilometers. The only thing left was to sign out at the ranger station near where our car awaited. The West Coast Trail definitely lived up to the hype, and it's an experience that I won't soon forget.